Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Monday, August the 4th, 2025. And another weekend of watching my team get flogged. This time they actually led for 2.5 quarters. And then, were just steamrolled in the last quarter and a half. It's the story of our year. Actually, I'm talking about Carlton. I think you'd probably know that by now if you watch this channel. But yeah, 4 goals up, I think, at half time, and cruising in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden the wheels just fall off and they just go to sleep. And well, I've given up for the year anyway. But anyway, enough of the football, on to the boxing. And on this day, back in 1936, yes, we're going to go right back there almost 90 years. The late, great Henry Armstrong became world champion for the first time with a win over, was it Baby Arizmendi? Now that would have been, he held 3 world titles, I think, at the same time. So was it lightweight, welterweight and middleweight, I think it was? Either way, what an effort. And these aren't in between divisions, these are legitimate divisions. So I suppose if you put it in the context, he's gone up, 5 or 6 divisions over the journey, while at the same time, just amazing Henry Armstrong. And probably is in most people's probably top sort of 5 or 6 fighters of all time is Henry Armstrong. So an unbelievable fighter, and the only fighter ever to win or to hold world titles in 3 different divisions at the same time. All right, a couple other things. What do we got here? There's a few. I'll just pick out the main ones. 1980, I remember Hilario Zapata defeated Dominican Ray Melendez in Venezuela for the light flyweight title back in, 1980. 1994, Miguel Angel Gonzalez knocked out Levander Johnson in the 8th round to defend his lightweight world title. That was in Chihuahua, Mexico. In 2007, American David Diaz won the world lightweight title with a win over Eric Morales. That was a very, very good fight. I remember that. And that fight took place in Chicago, Illinois. And in 2007, this was the second fight, Mexicans Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez. Marquez is the brother of Juan Manuel Marquez. Israel Vasquez defeated Rafael Marquez by technical knockout in the 6th round to win back that WBC 122-pound title. This fight here took place in Hidalgo, Texas. Now, I was actually, these guys, if you know boxing, have fought 4 times. This was the second fight. I was actually at the first fight live in Los Angeles. I was in Carson, California at the Home Depot Center, it was called back then. And it was probably the first sort of fight. I'd been to, Shane Mosley and Raul Marquez, I think it was his name. It was a 3rd round technical draw, I think it was, at the Mandalay. That was my first sort of fight in America that I'd been to. But this is probably the first proper major fight that was actually of substance. Even though Shane Mosley, of course, that was a big fight back in the day, but it was a nothing fight as far as a result. That's probably what I'm trying to get at. But this was in as I said, Carson, California. I was over there on holiday, and I was just reading through the paper. Yes, it was the paper back then. I don't think you could access the newspapers online then from memory. But anyway, I was reading the newspaper and I saw that these two were going to fight. And I didn't really know too much about them because since I'd sort of finished up in 1998, I sort of been a bit of a hot and cold casual sort of supporter or fan of boxing. And I didn't really know a lot about these 2 guys. And I thought, while we're over here, we may as well go and see a fight. So that's the reason why we went to the Home Depot Center to watch this fight between Vasquez, who was trained by Justin Fortune, and Rafael Marquez. I can't remember, was he trained by Nacho Berenstein as well? Probably, I don't know. But either way, I remember on the undercard, Vic Darchinyan, I think I've told this story a couple of times, but Vic Darchinyan was on the undercard and he fought a young Mexican guy. I can't remember his name. And Vic Darchinyan knocked him out badly in the 12th round. And it wasn't good. They had to carry him out of the ring on a stretcher, and it wasn't a good look. And there was some concerns for him. Or a little bit later, I think it might have even was it before the main event or during the main event? I can't remember because it was the main prelim from memory. And they were interviewing Victor Chenian at ringside, and some Mexican fans up in the crowd threw some bottles at Victor Chenian, who is Armenian. And they obviously don't muck around in Armenia when it comes to that sort of stuff, because Victor Chenian's crew, who were sort of surrounding him, Billy Hussein was his trainer actually, he didn't do this, he was sort of stood back in horror, but Victor Chenian's, his posse, his crew, jumped into the crowd and started punching on with Mexican supporters. Yes, they are crazy. Because the Mexican fans there that night, there was probably, I can't remember, it might have been 5,000 or 6,000, I can't remember how many, but it was packed. Well, you'd think 95% of them would have been Mexican fans, considering the main event, and the undercard featured a lot of Mexicans, and they had no fear, and it was just on, and there was bottles and chairs and that going everywhere. It was full on, and it was actually a little bit scary at one stage, that, you know, because we were right there when it was happening. So, but anyway, they sorted it out, and in the main event, it was a brilliant fight. As I said, it was the first fight of the series. And if you're not familiar with the series of fights, and you're obviously, everyone talks about Ward and Gatti. Now, this wasn't of those proportions, but they were 4 great fights. They really were. This one had all the action, and it ended with Vasquez. I think, yes, this was the second fight. So, no, the first fight we went to. Rafael Marquez won that fight. Vasquez, I think he had to retire because of a broken nose or something. In this fight on this day is when, Vasquez got revenge. He would then win the third fight as well, and then the fourth fight went to Marquez. I think that's the way it went. So the first one to Marquez, second and third to Vasquez, and the fourth to Marquez. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, Vasquez, Marquez? But yeah, they were all great fights, and in that particular night, the crowd was just electric, and it was just a really good atmosphere, and the fight itself really measured up. So that was my memories of that fight of this series. All right, what's happening sort of in the news at the moment? Again, not an eventful sort of weekend. I see they've started the promotions for the Nikita Tszyu fight on August 20th. Really good promotions on main event. They've really started to up their game, I think, main event. And the promos they've sort of got going on social media and on Foxtel, very, very professional, and really do, I suppose, spark the interest in the fight. I suppose this is what they get paid to do. They want all of us to get excited by the fights and buy them. I think it's, what did I say, is it $60, $70, whatever it is. But it looks like they're really starting to get behind Nikita. And do they maybe look to invest a little bit more in Nikita, considering of what might happen with Tim, and whether he's going to be sort of back to that mainstream star that he was before the last sort of 18 months? It's interesting. But look, maybe it's just coincidence, and they're just purely doing what they need to do and put a really good promo out to sell these fights. Yeah, look, when is it? August 20th. So it's only, less than, what is it today, the 4th? So it's only a couple of weeks away. It's going to come around really quick. They didn't muck around. And then, of course, that the weekend before, the few days before, actually, what is it, the 20th? So the 7th, so 3 days before is when Sam Goodman and Andrew Maloney are in action as well. So, yeah, big couple of weeks for Aussie boxing. And, let's see if those three, I'm pretty sure out of all, I think Nikita will definitely win. I've got no doubt about that. Sam Goodman, yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know. And I'm pretty confident Andrew Maloney can get the job done over Argy Cortez. I think he's switched on. He looks the goods. I've seen a little bit of Cortez on YouTube, and he's definitely a fighter that Andy can beat. So as for Sam, yeah, look, that's going to be a tough one. Nick Ball is just an absolute wrecking ball, and we'll cover those fights a little bit more in detail next week, probably in the lead up to those events. Now, I saw on the international front over the weekend, Oscar De La Hoya was interviewed, and as far as his two sort of main fighters goes in Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez, not Teofimo Lopez, Virgil Ortiz. I just saw Teofimo there. The talk is that, or according to Oscar, he's not interested in the Rolly Romero rematch for Ryan Garcia. This is on the back, of course, of Ryan Garcia getting stuck into Oscar in the last few days on social media and interviews and everything else. So, but he's saying he's still his promoter and will promote his last fight, and not interested in the Rolly Romero rematch. He wants Teofimo Lopez. Now, it probably makes sense when you think about it, because if Ryan Garcia is correct and wants to leave Oscar De La Hoya after his last fight, there's one fight to go on the contract, you would think that Oscar wants to go out with a bang and get the biggest money fight that he can and cash out that way. I'm still to be convinced that Ryan Garcia leaves Oscar. I mean, what else is there? I mean, he could go to Eddie Hearn, of course, or get involved in Turki Al Sheikh. Who knows? Come here, buddy. We're not going to cross the road. Come on, man. There's people all over there with machinery. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. As I said, I'm not totally convinced he leaves Oscar. They've been through this before. They've got a bit of a love-hate relationship, don't they? But at the end of the day, it comes down to business. And if Oscar can get him those fights and do the right thing by him business-wise, that then you would think that he would stay. But having said that, as I said, like Eddie Hearn is in the mix, and Turki Al Sheikh. But the thing with Ryan, very, very marketable. Everyone's going to want a piece of Ryan Garcia. He's still a superstar. Come here, man. So I think he's going to have plenty of suitors if he does decide to leave Oscar. But at this stage, it looks like, as I said, Teofimo Lopez is the target. Come here, man. And Vergil Ortiz, he's going to be back in October. So I'm not quite sure who they're going to match him up with. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe just a fringe contender. He's been out the ring for a while. He's had the injuries. Come on, buddy. He's had those injuries. I think there's been people accusing of ducking the likes of Jaron Ennis and Xander Zayas. I don't think they're the type of, Zayas is not the type of fighter you would think that Ortiz would duck. But I just think there's a time and place for all these fights. And Ortiz actually said himself that, I never knew that having an injury and being out to heal was considered ducking these days. So some big fights there for Ortiz at 154. It's unusual, isn't it, that most people sort of perceive him as being the best fighter in the division, but he hasn't got a world title belt. It's strange, isn't it? You got Sebastian Fundora, who's probably the heir apparent, I suppose, the number 2. Zayas, I suppose, you'd have to have in the top 5, but there's so many great fighters at 154, but you would hope that when Ortiz comes back, there'll be some really big fights for him. Amir Khan has had a little bit to say about Canelo and Crawford coming up. He's the only fighter to fight both of those fighters. I remember, come on, man, what are you doing there? He's just standing here. Come here, man. So yeah, he has sort of give his opinion, and it just sort of adds to the amount of people, and it seems to be growing, that think Terence Crawford is going to beat Canelo Alvarez. I was at, and it's a big statement by Amir Khan considering what happened to him with Canelo. I was actually at that fight in Las Vegas back in 2016 when Canelo flattened him. Crawford beat him with a body shot. But they always tend to go to Amir Khan for these quotes. I'm not sure whether some of these publications most of them are English, so they just keep going to Amir for his opinion. But I suppose in this case it's warranted considering he's the only one to fight that's fought both of them. But he seems to think that while Canelo's size and strength and everything else will be an issue for Terence Crawford, he thinks that his overall skill and technique and all that sort of stuff will be too much for Canelo. But look, it's starting to heat up, isn't it? It's starting to sort of get a little bit of momentum every day now. There's articles and quotes and interviews and all that sort of stuff about the fight. What are we, about 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away, I think we are. And over the weekend, actually, I have booked my flights and everything to go over. So I'm going to head over on the 8th of September, which is the Monday. So I'm only going to be over there for a week. There'll be no sightseeing or tourist spots or anything like that. It'll just be straight over to Vegas for the fights. But yeah, I'll leave on the Monday, the 8th, and I'll be heading home the day after the fight. So it's a bit of a hit and run mission, but really looking forward to it. The tickets weren't as bad as what I thought they would be. I think there was just a lot of the worried people, as far as the packages and all that stuff goes. But as far as the tickets, I think they started about $350, which is pretty good. Got okay tickets. We're about sort of mid sort of range, which is pretty good. Flights were on special, which definitely helped. So that was good. And I booked the accommodation a couple of months ago when they first announced the fight. So I got the accommodation nice and cheap as well. We're actually going to stay at the Luxor, which will be really good. It's the big pyramid. So the reason I've gone for that one, and it's a really sort of good little hotel. Gets a little bit of flack online, but I actually really like it. Centrally located to the arena. It's only about a 5-minute walk to Allegiant Stadium, so that's good. And still, it's a little bit north of the Strip, or south of the Strip. But yeah, I've been there a few times now, so it's not that hard just to walk up and down, and they have monorails and buses and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I must admit now that I've actually booked my tickets, that I'm a little bit more excited about it, so it should be good. But yeah, Mir Khan, he's had his say along with many others. I haven't seen a lot of support for Canelo, and I reckon this is the thing that might actually get him up for the fight. The fact that so many people are backing Terence Crawford. Now, maybe they're just highlighting the ones that think Crawford will win, and look, probably the majority of people think Canelo will win, so what's the use of interviewing them? They want the people that think Crawford's going to win. But either way, look, I think it's going to be great for boxing. I think the interest in the event will be massive by the time it rolls around, and yeah, as I said, I really can't wait to sort of get over there. Now, another thing in the news as well, it was only just a bit of a snippet that I saw, is that the ex-promoter of Alexander Usyk, I can't remember his name, or even if I remembered, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it. But if you remember, he left the Usyk camp halfway through the camp for the Dubois fight, and he's spoken out, and he said it was all on good terms, it was amicable, it was mutual, that they parted ways. Well, he said that he wouldn't be surprised if Alexander Usyk doesn't fight again, at least in the boxing ring. And he would know. He's been part of Usyk's team for a long, long time. They've done some big things together. Well, he says that, in his opinion, that he wouldn't be surprised if Usyk has done enough. And let's face it, he's done everything. There's not really that many challenges left for him. And he might be done in the boxing ring, he said. So who knows, maybe he will go to MMA or something like that and have a bit of a go. He has got a background in that. So yeah, it's interesting times. And the reason I mention is that what would happen if Alexander Usyk did walk away from boxing? And it was like, oh, well, you know, people step up, but I'm not sure. I've had a little bit of a look at the heavyweight division. I'm not sure there's much out there. I think we could almost be entering a Klitschko era type of scenario without the Klitschkos, because I'm looking at the heavyweight division. Let's just say he retired tomorrow. You would have, in the IBF, Derek Chisora would fight Efe Ajagba for the IBF belt. The WBA, well, Wardley's the interim, but would he have to fight Michael Hunter or Kubrat Pulev for, and Hunter would fight for the WBA belt? Would we've got Ajit Kabel, who's the interim WBC champion, would he fight Lawrence Okoli for the WBC belt? See where I'm going with this? Not a lot of potential super fights here. And the WBO, you would have Joseph Parker. Now, says here, like, Moses Otama is number one, so that would probably be the most appealing fight, but Otama's got a fight with White coming up that he's got to get past. If it wasn't him, you would think that if White wins that, it would be White and Parker, but either way, not a lot there. And I'm just looking at the other, I suppose, quote unquote stars of the division. I mean, Filip Hrgovic, yeah, whatever. Zhilei Zhang's on the end of his career. Daniel Dubois, who knows what happens to him. Big Baby Anderson, Anthony Joshua, he's definitely probably the only star left if Usyk retired. You got Richard Torres coming up, I suppose. Frank Sanchez. I suppose what I'm getting at, I'm not that excited about the division. So if Usyk retires tomorrow, Anthony Joshua is probably the only real sort of big name in that division, and he's on his last legs as well. And who are the superstars going forward? As I said, it might be Otama, might be Richard Torres, but it's pretty slim pickings. So I'm not that excited about Usyk maybe retiring. And the thing is, I suppose it's one of those things, you don't know what you've got until they've gone. And all of a sudden, depending on what happens with Joshua, we could have Usyk, Fury and Joshua done. And then what? For what looked like it was a golden era of the heavyweight division, Does it look like we're going to get Joshua and Fury. We didn't get Joshua and Wilder. So yeah, I would hope that this is not the legacy of all those guys where we just didn't get those fights. I know Wilder's back, but who knows what's going on with him. He's not really, I didn't see they're rated, but he's on the tail end of his career as well. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's a future for the heavyweight division? I know there's always someone that comes around. And maybe it is Otama, although it's way too early for him. Maybe it is Terez, but I think it's way too early for him as well. But I'm just a little bit worried about what would happen if Usyk did call it a day, because there's not that much happening around him now. When I say not much happening, a lot of those fighters are very, very evenly matched, but they're all evenly matched on the B level shelf. So we don't seem to have that superstar coming through. But as I said, there's always someone that'll pop up their heads, and you've got to throw Justice Hoodie in there as well. Maybe he's a bit of the future. Fabio Wardley, as I said. So I'm sure someone will pop up, but at this stage, I don't think it'd be great for boxing if Usyk did retire, because there's not much else happening. But anyway, give me your thoughts as always, guys. But that's going to do it for this Monday, August the 4th. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you tomorrow.